Hello and welcome. Hi, I'm Dave, and this tutorial is part of a Learn React series. I will link to the playlist for the entire series in the description below. Today we're learning about React props and prop drilling. Props, as you might expect, is short for properties, and properties hold data, and prop drilling allows us to pass that data down from parent components to child components. You can see on the left I have Visual Studio Code open, and I have the app.js file open right here that shows the parent app component. On the right, I am running the React application that we have slowly been building through this tutorial series. It's a groceries list. One thing I notice right now is the list we completed in the last tutorial is still centered here. So just for my peace of mind, let's go to the index.css file, find the main element, and in there, under the justify content setting, instead of center, let's set that to flex-start and save the file. And that should take our list to the top and build it from the top down, which is what you would normally expect. Okay, back to the app.js file, you can see we've created three components: a header, content, and footer components. We're going to work with the header first, and we want to work with props inside the header. If we look at the header.js file that contains our header component, it's very simple. It has a header element, and inside of it, it has an h1 with a groceries list. Now back in the app.js file, we can take the header component that we've listed, and we can pass something like title. We could really name this anything we want to, but we're going to pass title and just make it a string. And here we'll say groceries instead of groceries list, just so we know it's different. And we can save this. And now in the header.js file, remember this is a component function. So we can pass in props, which is what is expected. The props come from the parent. And now, instead of the groceries list title here, we can put in an expression and we can say props.title. As the props hold all the different properties from the parent component that have been passed to the child component. And now when we save, we should see our app update and it just says groceries. It is using the props title. Now there is something we can do here instead of always referring to props as well. And if you're familiar with destructuring in JavaScript, this will be easier to understand, because instead of the word props, we can just use curly braces up here and destructure the props as they are passed into the functional component. So then we can just say title, and then we can get rid of the props dot, and this will still work in the same way. And you can see it still says groceries after we saved. Now if we come back to the app.js and we change this to grocery list and save, that's what will be passed to the header component. And now it says grocery list. Back here in the header.js file, and we've destructured our title. Now we could once again have props in here and have props.title, but we need to discuss default props. Default props allow us to set values for the props expected in the component, and if those are not provided, then the default values will take over instead of receiving an error. And this is great to do when you're speccing a component. In other words, when you're first designing the component and maybe you're not receiving the data from an API or even a local storage list like we have. Right now we're using some spec data already, but just for this example, we'll have the default props of the header, and here we can set the title to default title, and we'll save this, and we won't see any change yet because we're still providing the title from the parent. Let's go back to the app.js and let's not send a prop called title, and we'll just save this without, and now we get default title here. The component expects a prop, and when it doesn't receive it, it uses the default prop. If we put the prop back in that says grocery list, that will override the default, and now you can see grocery list again here in our application. Now that you have a general understanding of what props are and what prop drilling is from working with the header component, we need to look at our content component and our footer component. What I would like to do is list how many, or at least display how many list items we have, like a total count in the footer. So footer needs access to the list items, but they're all stored in the content component. And these are sibling components. We can't just reach over to the content component and get the data that we need. So we need to take some of that data that's in the content component, move it up to the app component, and then drill it down to both content and footer. So let's look at this content component, and you can see we have a use state item here with items and set items. And right now we have some default data in here for the default state. And what we need to do is take this, and I'm just going to cut with Control X in Windows at least, but cut this data, and I'm going to go back to the app.js, and I'm going to put it here instead of having it in the content.js or in the content component. So now we have items and set items. However, that is what is expected in content. So we need to add that here, and we can tab over and have items equals, and then set this as an expression and have items, and we can have set items equals set items as an expression, and we'll bring that over so that's all lined up. So now we're passing in both pieces that we use with use state. We've got items and set items being passed to content, but that's not all, because handle delete and handle check, these functions, also need to access those items as well. And so what I'd like to do is pass those down rather than keeping them here. So let's go ahead and select all of these functions and cut those out. And we can also drill functions down inside just as we do with other data. So we'll take this and paste those in. And now that we have that as well, we need to go ahead and tab this over, it looks like to me. We'll take this and highlight all of this, and I'm going to press tab one time. There we go. And now that we have that, we're also ready to pass down handle check and handle delete to the content.js. So here we have handle check, and this equals handle check. And then we'll do the same with handle delete. And we're passing all of this down to the content for now. Okay, so we're passing all of our props down. We're drilling those down to the content.js. And now in content.js, since those are missing, we'll get rid of these blank lines, we need to go ahead and destructure right here. And let's think about everything we're receiving. We've got items, set items, handle check, and I'm going to press Control B to hide the file tree for now so we can see more code. And then one more comma and handle delete. And it looks like we don't need the set items. I can't see where it's being used except in these functions. So we can go ahead and delete set items. I was wrong in providing that. I'm going to save this. We may get an error right now. And we'll come back to the app.js and we'll remove the set items that's being passed down. And we'll go ahead and save our app.js. And we've still got an error. It says use state is not defined in app.js, and that's because we're not importing it up here. So we need to import use state from React at the top of the file. And we go back to, it says use state is not defined again, but we did just define it. Let's go ahead and reload. There we go. And now if we go back to the content.js, we can actually see use state is not being used here. So we can get rid of that import line at the top of this file, and we'll go ahead and save that as well. Now our app seems to be functioning as normal. We can check, uncheck, everything is responding. We can delete an item. And so our functions are working, but they're all being passed down now to the content.js file through props and prop drilling. So here we go, we've destructured all three of those, and then we can refer to them. And back in the app.js, they're all held in this functional component, and they are passed into the content.js here. Now this also allows us to refer to the items that we hold in state in the footer component. As we address the footer component, remember where I said we could essentially name this attribute that passes down the props anything we want to. So they won't always match if we don't want them to. And this is a good example of that. I'm going to call this length. And now what I pass in won't just be something named length. It's going to be items.length. I'm getting the length of the array that we're holding in state, and I'm just passing in that value. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. It won't change anything yet. Now let's press Control B to show the file tree just long enough to click on the footer file. I'll press Control B again to hide it. Now instead of this copyright message, so we can get rid of everything about that, I want to display how many items we have here in the footer. So I'm going to start out with that value that we receive, length, which is a good reminder that we need to destructure and receive length here into the footer component at the top. And now after length, I'm going to say list, and then I'll say items. Now I'm going to change this. I'm not quite finished, but I'll show you why. So let's save this much. And now you can see we have 3 list items in our application. But if I delete 1 and 2, now I have 1 list items. I don't like that. I'd rather have it say 1 list item when there's only 1. So let's go ahead and change that. And we can do that by putting in a expression right here, and we'll check the length. And if it is equal to 1, a strict equals, we'll just return item. And then we can have our false part of the statement, and we can say items. And then we'll end that expression with a curly brace. Now let's go ahead and save. We have 1 list item. Now I should be able to reload and get all of our items back because we're not loading those back from local storage yet. So our changes aren't permanent. This always goes back to the default state. But you can see we have 3 list items with an S, 2 list items with an S, and now 1 list item. Now if I get rid of all of the list items, we have 0 list items, and that's okay. I don't mind the S with the 0, but if we have 1, I would just as soon it just said 1 item. Now that we've finished making the change to the footer, we can go ahead and make a change to the content as well. And that'll be through abstraction. So let's go ahead and show the file tree again. I press Control B to do that. And let's look at the content.js. I think we can use some abstraction and create a couple of more components, maybe a reusable component that can declutter a lot of what we see here. I'm going to close this terminal window at the bottom as well. Now, as we look at everything that we have in this content.js, and it's a little bigger than the other files, all this JSX, remember we have this so it gives us a your list is empty message if there are no items, if that items array that we hold in state is empty. Otherwise, we get this unordered list. We can really take this unordered list and make a separate component called item list. So let's do that now. I'm going to press Control B to show the file tree, and from there I'm going to click the new file icon, and I'm going to call this file item list with a capital I and capital L. It'll be JS. Now I'm going to press Control, the Alt key, and the letter R, and now I should be able to type underscore RAFCE, and yes, we get our shortcut to creating that functional component. And this is because we are using an extension that is ES7. Let me look at the full name of that. We went over this earlier in the tutorial series, but I just want to mention it. ES7 React Redux GraphQL, all this native snippets. So look for that by DSZNAJDER. I'm sure I would butcher that pronunciation if I even tried it. So now we've got our item list component, and we'll eventually want to import a component in here, but right now we can just leave that at the top. And our item list is going to receive a few things as well that we are pulling in from the other component. Let's click back to the file exploration here. I'll close up the open editors, but we'll look at this, and we want to look at the parent. So the parent is content.js, and I'll press Control B to hide the file tree so I can see a little more. But what all are we using here? We have items, handle check, and handle delete. I think we want to pass all of those on down to our unordered list. So, because that's where they're being used. So we've done that, and now back to the item list file, we can just paste those right in here as well. So they're being passed down and then passed down again. Again, prop drilling. So we're drilling down from a parent to a child, and now from that parent down to the next child. So 2 levels at least. Back in the content.js, we can just copy everything we have right here. The unordered list. Actually, let's cut. I'll just press Control X. We just cut all of that out, and now we can paste it. And again, we don't need the divs. I much prefer semantic HTML if possible. Avoid the divs when you can, and paste in this unordered list that we now have here. And I've backed it up with a tab there. I'm pressing Control Tab, I believe, or maybe Shift Tab. Which was that? Let me look real quick. Shift Tab. So now I can tab that back into place. Shift Tab if you want to change the tab backwards, and Tab, of course, if you go forwards. All right, so we've got our unordered list in our item list JS. We can save this change. We're exporting the default item list here. So we're going to need to import this now into the content.js. And of course, we're going to need to do a few other things too. So let's import item list from /item list into the content.js. We can save that, but we're going to see an error. We need to put our item list component into the JSX. So we have item list, and now on a separate line, let's go ahead and pass down these props. So we have items, and we need a curly brace there, equals items. And then on the next line, I'm going to do handle check equals handle check. And on the next line, handle delete equals handle delete. And now with that complete, we need to go ahead and close out the component. And now let's save and see if it reformats. I'm using the prettier extension that formats my code, so that's why you might see some of those changes there. I want to tab this in just a little bit and save again. No, it wants to move it back out. And now you can see we still have an error, but it's not really a problem with this file other than we've moved our React icon one component down. So instead of this import statement here at the top of this file where we can save content.js in the item list, now we need to import the icon at the top here. So let's do that and save. Got another error, but I'm going to try to reload to see if we can catch up and not have a problem. And there it's fine. So sometimes if you get an error, just go ahead and reload one more time to allow React to catch up. Now we've got our trash icon imported here into our list, and we've got a separate list component that is building out our list. If we look back at the content component, it's much more organized now, and we can really see the logic in this ternary statement we have here. If we have length to the items array, then we display the items list, and if not, we display the list as empty message. Just for my peace of mind, I'm going to delete this extra line we have with the curly brace at the end. I think it looks a little bit better like that. I'm going to save. It's essentially the same thing. It just looked weird to me the other way. I've got an extra space here too with the main element. And now that I've completed those for peace of mind, we're ready to look at making a reusable line item component. Let's go ahead and show the file tree again and think about the tree or the component tree as we drill down. We started with the app component, which is a parent, and then we moved down to the content component. So from app.js to content.js, and then to item list.js. We're going to go one more level as we create a line item.js. So let's click new file, and line item.js with a capital L and a capital I. And this will be a reusable component that we use for every line item. So once again, press the Control key, the Alt key, and the letter R, if you're on Windows at least, and we can do _RAFCE, and we'll create this reusable line item component. Now, learning from our previous mistake, if we go ahead and jump back to the item list component, we can copy our import of the icon because we're really going to need it in the line item instead of the full list. So once we have done that, we can add that import at the top of the file so we don't get an error in the future from that. And then we can still go back to the item list. Now let's go ahead and hide the file tree to have more room by pressing Control B. Now everything that we see inside the map as we map through each item creates this line item. So we can take all of this and cut. I press Control X on Windows, kind of like copy, but we're cutting it out and we're going to paste it in here in the line item. And again, I'm replacing the div with an LI for line item. And I'm going to tab this over so it lines up right for me. There we go. So the full line item. And now, of course, we'll be importing the things that we were using in the item list JS. We do use items here, but we need to go ahead and send all of these on down through the component tree to the line item component because we'll be using all of them here as well. So now that we've done that, we can save this, and it looks like we're not using items, but we are going to use item because this is an individual line item. So let's go ahead and provide item to pass down. So now we know we need the individual item, and we still need access to the handle check function and the handle delete function. So this is what we'll be passing down to the line item component every time it maps through an item. So we'll save this file and it's exported as line item. We'll go back to the item list and we need to import line item. And that will be from /line item. And now that we've done that, we need to create our line item component here in the JSX. And now we need to pass the props down to the line item. So let's start with item, as that is generated from map as we map through the items. So we pass in item as an expression, item equals item. From there, we're also going to pass in handle check, which should equal handle check, and handle delete, which should equal handle delete. But we're not quite finished yet. This will still cause a problem. Oh, and we also need to close out the component, or we'll definitely have a problem. But this is still a problem. I'll go ahead and save, and I'll see if it identifies it in the errors here in the console. I'll scroll this up, choose the console, and yes, we have an error. Let's look at what this error is. And each child should have a unique key prop. That's what we need here, each child. So we need to supply the key. So let's go ahead and do that for each line item right here. And we'll set the key equal to item.id. Now if we save that, our error should go away. We'll go ahead and reload. And no more error. And we've created a reusable component for each item in our list. So all of these props are passed down. And, oh, and we can get rid of this import for the trash icon. We already have it in the line item component now. But the items, handle check, and handle delete are passed into the list. And then we use those, except items is mapped through, so it generates item. So the line item component gets item instead of items, but it still gets the handle check and handle delete functions passed down as props as well. And then we can see those here in the line item. So we have more files, but it's very organized and very specific. It's a little more abstract, but it's also very reusable. And we definitely see that with line item, as this component is used every time we add a new item, to the list. Just one more quick adjustment, and that's just something I see missing from our trash icon buttons. Since it's a button, but it's an image, we need to add an ARIA label here. And we're going to just set this equal to a expression that will hold a template literal, and we'll say delete, and now we can refer to each specific item. So there it just says delete item.item, just like we have in the description. And that provides an ARIA label for accessibility for our trash can icons. So if we save that, we've progressed quite a ways in this grocery list project, and we will continue to move even further, as in the next tutorial we'll be adding new items to the list and loading the items that we've saved from local storage as well. So we'll be working with controlled inputs in the form input state. Hey, thank you guys so much for liking the video if it helped you get started with React. Also, I appreciate you watching and subscribing. It's helping my channel grow. Take care, and I'll see you again very soon.